Viewer discretion is advised.
There was a knock on the door of a grand estate. The housekeeper opened, but there was nobody. Strange, I swear I heard something, he thought to himself. No matter, I must tend to my duties. He turned and paced towards the kitchen, then brought out some dishes. He brought them and presented them in front of his, shall we say, master. Your meal, sir. His master grabbed at the food, eating them slowly with the elegance of a gentleman and the appetite of a hungry beast. As the housekeeper turned to leave, his master called out to him, "What do you say? We find some more palatable meal?" He turned back around, bowed slightly, and said, "Of course, sir. Hello, everybody. I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation Keter Class Object, SCP-957. SCP-957, also known as Baiting, is a humanoid entity currently residing in an undisclosed location within Kentucky, USA. It appears to be devoid of internal organs, as observed via a large opening on its ventral torso. It also doesn't appear to require sleep and nourishment. Interaction with Foundation personnel shown that 957 is capable of fluent English, but prefers to talk in an unknown language. Although it is not openly hostile towards Foundation personnel, yet it refuses to participate in interviews and tests. Attempts to restrain SCP-957 for these purposes have proven ineffective due to the entity's disproportionate level of strength. As such, 957 is to be monitored via remote video surveillance set up within its residence. 957 will always reside in a house inhabited by a single human, hereby designated SCP-957-1. When the instance of 957-1 dies, the entity will demanifest from the location and reappear in the nearest location. Upon doing this, it will seek out the individual residing there and force the human's body through an apparent portal via its chest cavity, where the subject will remain for approximately 4 hours before emerging. After this, 957-1 will be missing its eyes, as well as exhibiting drastic changes to its memory. These individuals will believe that they have been blind all of their life and possess knowledge of Braille and living without sight. Additionally, they will believe that 957 is a close family member, a dear friend, or a partner in an intimate relationship that had been severely burned all over its body. As such, they show affection for the entity but refuse to touch it. Once every month, 957-1 will go into crowded areas and feign distress due to its blindness. It does so in order to deceive people into helping it back to its house. In the event that 957-1 is unable to do this, 957 will perform the task itself. However, it appears to dislike doing this. One such incident was recorded by the Foundation, as one Sam Jones was successfully lured into 957's residence. He had learnt that kindness doesn't often pay, especially not this time. A fatal mistake. "This is it, mister. Thank you so much for helping me." 957-1 opened the door and invited Sam in, which it insisted strongly when Sam declined. Reluctantly, he stepped into the house. The interior was much darker than it had appeared from the outside. Once inside, the door was immediately bolted shut behind him. He turned to look at 957-1. Its smile was no longer friendly. Its attention was fixed on Sam as it slowly moved its hand away from the door. "Why don't you have a seat?" Sam hesitated for a moment and said, Actually, I think I better get going." He made for the door, but 957-1 wouldn't move. The smile had completely gone from its face. It held out a hand in front of Sam and he stopped. Even though it has no eyes, the lusterless flesh where the eyes would be seemed to stare blankly at him. They seemed to tell him, "Stay." Sam backed away from the door and anxiously settled down at a nearby couch. "I'll be with you shortly. Don't you worry." He briskly walked into the back of the house and started shouting in an unknown language which startled Sam. He then slowly sat down at the dining table. His arms rested on the table, palms down, face forward. His expression was blank, like an android waiting for the next instruction. When Sam made his second attempt towards the door, he heard a voice. "Going somewhere?" For some reason, he hadn't noticed that a hunchback, malnourished-looking entity was residing at the dark corner. It had seemingly emerged out of nowhere. It was watching him from the corner of its eyes, with its back facing towards him. 957 slowly removed itself from the darkness and moved towards Sam. He retreated, but there was nowhere to run. He looked towards the person he had helped coming back here, but there he was, sitting still at the dining table. "Don't be afraid now, child." As 957 extended its hand towards Sam, a black spherical barrier manifested and surrounded them. After 30 minutes, it demanifested, and out came 957, and Sam, who had gone through grotesque alterations. Reptilian scales had formed on parts of his body. His eyes were gone, and a slightly off-centered eye took their place. Immediately, he fell onto the floor due to his legs, which now appeared sallow and underdeveloped. Sam reached forward with his disproportioned hands and tried to call out to someone. He felt his insides twisting and turning, and suddenly he puked out his innards all over the floor. "Dear, oh dear, look at the state of you." "Looks like I'll have to clean this up, don't I?" With its bony hands, 957 scooped up the puke and then grabbed Sam's head with the other, then headed towards the kitchen. "Just you wait. Dinner will be served real soon." Even though it was as still as a statue, 957-1 started to drool. At the kitchen, 957 started to prepare a meal using the ingredients he had gathered, freshly sourced directly from Sam. First the eye, the liver. Bah, this is useless. Oh, this is fresh. Yes, yes. Moments later, 957 emerged from the kitchen and placed the dish in front of 957-1. As if possessed by a demonic presence, 957-1 twitched and then started devouring the dish with the fervor of a savage. 957 re-entered the living room, where an otherworldly voice could be heard communicating with it. 957 then lost his smile. It had taken on an insidious, violent expression. "How much longer do I have to stay here?" "It will be a while, brother. Your disguise is working wonderfully, and he is extremely convincing. It is just boring and tiresome down here. These unclean forms are so restraining. Patience, brother. We will be done with our research soon enough. Don't worry." Suddenly, a bang was heard. 957 turned and looked towards the kitchen. 957-1 was convulsing on the floor. Its body was distorted in an unnatural manner. Its face was pale, its mouth wide open, as if it was trying to scream for help, or merely in agony. We would never know, and it did not matter to 957. "These things are so frail. But I suppose you want me to find another one." "Yes, I will speak to you soon." The voice vanished, and 957 retreated back into the corner where it resided. It disappeared into the shadow, seemingly merged as one with the darkness. Viewer discretion is advised. "I saw it, Doctor. You believe me, don't you? That man, no, whatever that thing was, I watched it eat my friend. Well, not really eat. More so it swallowed him whole. His screams echoed out of its widely stretched mouth as he was being consumed. How could something so gaunt and freakish possess an appetite like that? Or even be that strong? I hate that it resembled a human because it clearly wasn't. An abomination was what it was. But the one thing I couldn't get over, the one thing that's giving me nightmares about that terrible night, was that sack. It carried a sack, Doctor. Its long and ancient hand gripped it tightly, like it was trying to protect whatever was inside as it feasted on my friend. What the hell was in that sack? It looked heavy. That thing used the sack to bludgeon him over and over again until he's dead. But why didn't it kill me? How am I still alive? Oh God, David, I'm so sorry. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-050-PT. SCP-050-PT, also known as the Sackman, is a humanoid entity currently contained by the Foundation at an undisclosed national park at the bottom of a deep mineshaft. Standing at a staggering 18 feet tall, 050PT resembles an elderly man of European descent. However, while vaguely human, this entity is gaunt yet oddly muscular, specifically its jaw muscles and the surrounding bone structures. These muscles are built in a way that allows its jaw to open at a 120-degree angle to swallow its prey whole, similar in the way a snake would. Furthermore, its neck and respiratory system are extremely deformed in the sense that they both measure around 31 inches in diameter. These deformations also help in the swallowing of its prey, humans. Much like many other anomalies, 050PT holds great disdain for humans and will become hostile upon seeing one. It will then stop at nothing to hunt down said human, capture them, and consume them. 050PT has been observed to shrug off bullets as though they were pebbles and appears to be ambivalent towards pain in general. This is according to an SCP security personnel who helped trap it in the aforementioned mine shaft. In other words, once this anomaly has set its eyes on you, there is little that can be done to save yourself. The anomalous abilities of 050PT do not end with just its insatiable appetite for humans and its grotesque jaw. No, upon consuming its prey, 050PT will grow in size by 1% for every hour it digests. SCP researchers hypothesize that if left to its own devices, 050PT could grow indefinitely. The last thing the Foundation needs is another gigantic anomaly that cares not for pain, feeds on humans, and has the potential for more anomalous abilities as it grows larger. What is most peculiar about 050PT is that it carries a leather sack in its right hand. The bones in its right hand are observed to be incredibly deformed and crippled as a result of its constant and insanely tight grip on the sack. Despite the researchers' best efforts, no one could determine what was being held in that sack, or why 050PT held it so firmly in its grasp. And so, the Foundation did what they'd always do in this type of situation, monitoring the anomaly in question 24/7 and keeping an MTF nearby in case things go south. Shortly after 050PT was lured into the mineshaft where it currently resides, several Foundation agents and witnesses in the area discovered a large number of odd-looking bones and skeletal remains. Upon further examination by Foundation researchers, they have determined that these bones are the remains of other entities like 050PT. What's more, the bones were revealed to be quite old enough to mean that these entities had been lurking in the area for untold generations. What was most upsetting was that despite the age of the bones, they were not brittle, nor had the appearance of age to them at all. The Foundation would have never known that the bones were thousands of years old if they hadn't dated them. Furthermore, after stress testing them in mechanical vices, let's just say the bones beat the machines. This leads the researchers to believe that killing these entities would require an obscene amount of force. Due to its incredible durability and bullet-resistant skin, the Foundation is in for it if 050PT ever escapes. Just outside 050PT's containment mineshaft, Guardsmen Raquel and David were complaining about the very anomaly held within. I say we just kill the damn thing. It's trapped in a mineshaft and has made no attempts to escape. Why is the Foundation dragging their feet around this and letting it live? So that they can experiment and run more of their little tests? I mean, sure, bullets and conventional weaponry don't do anything against it, but come on, don't we have plenty of firepower on standby in some warehouse or something? We could just use those and blast the damn thing away. Are we seriously going to wait until that man-eating thing grows large enough that we can't even hurt it? Eventually, it could even break through the walls, David said and nodded furiously. Seriously, what is the O5 Council doing? I have to admit, sometimes I think the Foundation should act a little more like the Global Occult Coalition. There are some things that we just cannot let live, or live long enough that they become a threat. I don't care if the Foundation fires me for saying all of this. I know I'm right. My body trembles every time I'm on duty here alone. I know how deadly it is without even being next to it. Hell, the last time I went by it, it groaned loud. I'm not talking about the usual monstrous groaning. It was calling out to something. Someone. God, we have to do something. Okay, you know what? Hear me out. I have a plan. Tomorrow, I'm gonna sneak some extra firepower with me. Then, I'm gonna go in there and kill the damn thing for good. You in? You kidding me? Of course I'm in. We'll say, it's an accident or something. You idiot. How is it to be an accident when it's gonna be filled with bullet holes? But it doesn't matter, because after that, I'm gonna switch sides to the GOC. Oh, I'm coming with you too then. The Foundation's policies are lame anyway. The next night, after they reported in with their commanding officer, they took out the gear that they had stashed nearby. Alright, this should be enough. A 50 cal anti-material rifle, a deployable turret, and some explosives. But there's only one rifle. What about me? I can't do anything with this standard issue crap. David took out his pistol and scoffed at it. Raquel only smiled. And you won't have to. Just carry the gear and follow my lead, yeah? Just plant the turret in C4s when I tell you to. Alright, enough dilly-dally, let's move. They entered the mine with Raquel leading with one hand holding a flashlight and the other cradling the rifle clumsily. They moved slowly as they could only see what the flashlight illuminated in front of them. Ugh, come on, how deep does this mine go? They could hear nothing aside from their footsteps and the equipment's clanking on David's back. Suddenly, they heard a faint growl. Shh, wait, you hear that? Yeah, I think we should go back now. Don't be foolish, we can't go. Wait, I think it's coming this way. Hold this. Raquel shoved the flashlight into David's hand and aimed the rifle in front of him. He stilled himself and waited in anticipation as the sound of footsteps and groaning were getting closer. Suddenly, 050PT's face emerged from the darkness, catching them off guard. Its unblinking sallow eyes stared at them. Holy cow! Raquel hastily pulled the trigger and missed. The gunshot was so loud that it startled both of the men, but 050PT was unfazed by it and advanced towards them. Panicking, Raquel struggled to operate the rifle's bolt. He threw it aside and ran for it. He pushed past David, who fell onto the ground. Wait, where are you going? Don't leave me here! Raquel cursed as he ran, never looking back. The mine was like a maze, and soon enough, he arrived at a dead end. Ah, damn it all! Is that you, David? He heard footsteps catching up to him. Then it slowed down. It was an out-of-breath David. Raquel, don't leave me. Ah! David fell to the ground as 050PT smashed its sack against him from behind. Its movements were slow and deliberate. David reached out towards Raquel and was immediately smashed on his back by 050PT using its sack over and over again. When he was down for good, 050PT lifted his body and began to swallow him whole. Raquel could only watch. Oh my God, David, I'm so sorry. He fainted soon after. When he woke up, he found himself strapped to a bed, surrounded by multiple Foundation personnel. I see you've regained consciousness, Raquel Santoro. And with that, let's begin, shall we? Tell me, what were you doing in the containment mine shaft? And what happened to your partner? Viewer discretion is advised. My grandfather had trouble with snoring and several heart issues that made it difficult for him to get a full night of sleep. And after years of his doctor recommending that he purchase a CPAP machine, after the first night of using it, he said he felt like a changed man. He woke up feeling refreshed, energized, and 10 years younger according to him. Who would have thought that my ornery and spiteful grandfather could be so cheery and peaceful? I guess getting a good night's rest after several years was a godsend for him. He was so happy, only for one single day. The next day, he walked into the kitchen shaking and looking around fearfully. When we asked him what in the world had gotten him so spooked, he said that a monster had come to him last night. My dad sat him down and asked him to tell us about it. According to him, he had woken up in the middle of the night thanks to my raised voice during a gaming session. He said that he was unable to move a single muscle and noticed an odd shadow in the corner of his room. This large, black, amorphous blob sloshed its way over to his bed and began climbing it. Any attempt at shouting for help failed, as his lips wouldn't listen to his brain's commands. This monstrous blob then reshaped itself before his eyes and became more and more humanoid, eventually taking on the appearance of an adult male with shadowy features, except for its torso. The torso, according to my grandfather, was the worst part. He described it as a jagged-tooth-filled maw with a large, writhing tongue that licked its teeth. My grandfather wanted to move away, but he couldn't. Fear paralyzed him. He had no choice but to pull the tough man at as he stared down the creature for what felt like an eternity until it vanished when the sun came up. We assured him that it was just sleep paralysis, a waking nightmare, and nothing to worry about. However, the next few days proved the exact opposite. He became highly agitated during the day, exhausted, and short with us, all before descending into madness by shouting at unseen figures and voices that seemed to plague incessantly. Nothing we could do consoled him at this point. Even the doctors were at a loss as to what was wrong with him. They simply settled on rapid onset dementia and paranoia coupled with insomnia. Sadly, he had to be put into a medically induced coma in order to finally get him to rest. As horrible as his situation was, there was something odd about the whole ordeal. Namely, how a new doctor named Dr. Gears came along and transferred my grandfather to a private facility in order to analyze this unknown condition. Haven't heard from him since. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-3060. SCP-3060, also known as Sleep Paralysis, refers to a collection of anomalous CPAP machines. The Foundation currently has 5 of these devices in custody. These machines are harmless when left alone, but activate when they are worn by a sleeping human. During the second night of sleep using an instance of 3060, the user will enter a state of sleep paralysis. A ghostly entity designated as SCP-3060-A will manifest near the victim and watch over them until they awaken. This entity will then manifest every night to the victim, regardless of using the CPAP machine. Typical 3060-A manifestations include an infant created from human teeth, an elderly woman, severely injured and with a blank face, partially disintegrated human, a humanoid figure covered in tire tracks, a clown, and lastly, humanoid with a torso replaced by a monstrous maw. While 3060-A watches over the victim, anyone nearby will become infected and pass out, wherein a new 3060-A will manifest and travel to the new victim, phase an appendage through their brains, and vanish. The infected who awakened by external stimuli will vanish immediately, and all the new infected victims will awaken right after. Interestingly enough, only humans are affected by 3060. Animals are not. After a few days of infection, the victims will suffer mood changes, tiredness, and memory problems. Nightmares have also been reported, though no central themes or correlations have been observed in the content of said dreams. After a month, they descend into paranoia and are assaulted by aggressive visual and auditory hallucinations. And finally, they suffer extreme psychosis, unable to decipher between their dreams and reality, and ultimately die as a result if not put into a coma. There is no cure at this time, and the only treatment so far has been to delay sleep as long as possible each day. Should the infected die after 7 days, a 3060-A instance will manifest and hunt for a new sleeping victim in the area. If none are found, it will vanish and the area will not be targeted any further. The Foundation first learned of 3060 after a sleep study in Portland. Studying the effects of the CPAP machine in question was brought to their attention. All participants became infected and taken into custody, as well as any and all documentation they could find at the clinic. Shortly after arrival, all participants died in their sleep. Curiously, the head researcher of the sleep study, Dr. Zhao, was discovered to be a frequent user of SCP-2876, an anomalous smartphone application created by the Wonnerai Group, which allows users to customize and purchase their ideal lucid dreams. The Foundation sent MTF Dream Team to investigate the group. Even though they have denied any involvement in 3060, the investigation is still ongoing. What followed was the first tests with SCP-3060 by using 4 D-Class personnel housed in nearby cells within the same holding block as an infected woman who at this time entered her second REM sleep. D-1260 was mindlessly playing cards, D-2860 was reading, D-2106 was seen pacing around nervously, and D-2306 was asleep. At approximately midnight, 3060-A manifested over the infected woman. 4 shadowy humanoid figures manifested around the woman as well. They stood above her for exactly 5 minutes, as another D-Class nearby became unresponsive and was paralyzed with the looks of fear on their faces. The 4 instances separated and glided over to the panicking D-Class subjects. They hovered above each D-class, watching them intently before phasing their hands into their skulls, and then vanished. The test resulted in a containment breach, which in turn infected several Foundation personnel. Among the infected ones was one researcher, Dr. Joanna Corbin. "Hey Joe, how are we doing today?" "Hey Roland, yeah, I'm fine, but tired. Hard to concentrate when the walls are bleeding, don't sit there." "Why, may I ask?" "Just trust me, for my mental sanity. Don't do it, please. I'll be much more composed if I don't have to watch you sit in that chair." Dr. Corbin only looked at the ground in front of her, trying hard to avoid looking at the chair. "Hallucinations are becoming harder to separate from reality, I see." "Yes, I know it's not real, but I can't. It's like something else is inside my head." Dr. Corbin then smacked her head repeatedly and then shouted obscenities at some unseen entity. "I understand that you recognize that these entities aren't real, but in my eyes, if they have that much effect on you, they're real enough, and we'll help you with that. Tell me, are these voices or creatures trying to make you do something specific? Do you know of any goal that they have?" "I don't know. It speaks to me through me sometimes, too. I don't know what it wants, but there's something else in my brain. It's not all a hallucination. I know that." She then rubbed her eyes. She was on the verge of a breakdown. "I am so fried right now, Roland. Sleeping's become a chore, a nightmare-filled chore that leaves me feeling more exhausted than when I went to bed. And when I wake up, it's like I'm taking the nightmares with me, like the barrier between my conscious and subconscious has become non-existent. Allow me to test something if you don't mind. I want you to read what is on this piece of paper for me. Can you do that?" She then chuckled. Not because it was funny, it was her expression of desperation. "I can't read a damn word on this paper. All the words are literally running off the page and into the air. Here, I'll read it for you then. Do you have a name? Are you a separate entity from Dr. Corbin? Do you belong to this reality, or do you reside in her brain?" Suddenly, panic took over Dr. Corbin. She flipped the table aside and tackled Dr. Farrow to put out the imaginary flames on him. "Fire! Fire! We need a fire extinguisher in here!" "It's not real, Jenny! It's not real! I'm fine!" Dr. Farrow approached and put his hand on Dr. Corbin's shoulder to calm her down. She was calm for a moment, but it didn't last. She began to whimper and crawled away, sobbing. "I can't read it. I can't do it. It won't let me. Or I can't. I don't know." "Well then, I'll leave the list with you. See if you can ask them when you have a less visually clustered moment." After Dr. Farrow left the room, Dr. Corbin attempted to read the paper again and again, but could not. She was seen and heard screaming in pain and frustration. It is hypothesized by Dr. Farrow that the entity or entities tied to 3060 intensify the hallucinations when they are being sought out, all in an attempt to prevent their or its identity from being discovered. A year after the initial discovery of SCP-3060, the Foundation found nearly 100 advertisements for 3060 in the USA, Canada, and Europe. Before the ads were taken down, the Foundation managed to track down where the ads had come from: Courier Logistics. According to shipping logs found inside the business, 3,000 units of 3060 were shipped globally. Fortunately, thanks to the fast actions of MTF Alpha 4, they managed to recover 2,970 units, leaving only 30 unaccounted for. Courier warehouse staff were oblivious to the effect of the devices when interviewed, having all been hired within the last 2 weeks, prior to their order for the 3,000 units of SCP-3060. Over half of these individuals were users of SCP-2876 prior to their hire date. Due to the missing 30 units of 3060, the status of 3060 has been elevated from Euclid to Keter. Multiple MTF squads have been put on standby across the globe, specifically for outbreaks of 3060. Furthermore, due to the nature of 3060, it is possible that the 3060 infection could spread exponentially across the globe. All because the effects of 3060 are not immediately apparent to the Foundation until the infected are already near death, meaning that hundreds to thousands could be infected without Foundation knowledge. In other words, 3060 could potentially lead to an AK-class end-of-world scenario, resulting in mass destruction, violence, and death due to the actions of millions and possibly billions experiencing a psychotic break. The O5 Council has given any MTF squad involved in the containment of SCP-3060 to use as much force as they deem necessary to combat it, all with the seal of approval from the Ethics Committee, despite the morally gray area of such actions.